Genesis chapter 14. And it came to be in the days of Amraphel, sovereign of Shinar, Arioch, sovereign of Elazar, Kedorlaomer, sovereign of Elam, and Tidal, sovereign of Goyim, that they fought against Bera, sovereign of Sodom, Birsha, sovereign of Amorah, Shinav, sovereign of Admah, Shem-ever, sovereign of Sevoim, and the sovereign of Bela, that is Soar. All these joined together in the valley of Siddim, that is the salt sea. 12 years they served Kedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year Kedorlaomer and the sovereigns that were with him came and smote the Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzim in Kam, and the Aimites in Shaweh Kiriathayim, and the Korites in their mountain of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And they turned back and came to En Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites who dwelt in Katsetson Tamar. And the sovereign of Sodom, and the sovereign of Amorah, and the sovereign of Admah, and the sovereign of Sevoim, and the sovereign of Bela, that is Soar, went out and joined together in battle in the valley of Siddim against Kedorlaomer, sovereign of Elam, and Tidal, sovereign of Goyim, and Amraphel, sovereign of Shinar, and Arioch, sovereign of Elazar, 4 sovereigns against 5. And the valley of Siddim had many tar pits, and the sovereigns of Sodom and Amorah fled and fell there, and the remainder fled to the mountains. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Amorah, and all their food, and went away. And they took Lot, Avram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and left. And one who had escaped came and informed Avram the Ivri, for he dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner, and they had a covenant with Avram. And when Avram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. And he and his servants divided against them by night, and smote them, and pursued them as far as Kovah, which is on the left of Damascus. So he brought back all the goods, and also brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the woman and the people. And after his return from the defeat of Kedorlaomer and the sovereigns who were with him, the sovereign of Sodom came out to meet him at the valley of Shaweh, that is, the sovereign's valley. And Melchizedek, sovereign of Shalem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was the Kohen of the Most High El. And he baraked him and said, Baruch be Avram of the Most High El, possessor of the Shamayim and earth. And Baruch be the Most High El, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And he gave him a tenth of all. And the sovereign of Sodom said to Avram, Give me the people, and take the goods for yourself. But Avram said to the sovereign of Sodom, I have lifted my hand to Yahweh, the Most High El, the possessor of the Shamayim and earth. not to take a thread or a sandal strap or whatever is yours, lest you should say, I have made Avram rich. Accept only what the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portion. Chapter 15. After these events, the word of Yahweh came to Avram in a vision, saying, Do not be afraid, Avram. I am your shield. Your reward is exceedingly great. And Avram said, Adonai Yahweh, what would you give me, seeing I go childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus? And Avram said, See, you have given me no seed, and see, one born in my house is my heir. And see, the word of Yahweh came to him, saying, This one is not your heir, but he who comes from your own body is your heir. And he brought him outside and said, Look now toward the Shamayim, and count the stars if you are able to count them. And he said to him, So are your seed. And he believed in Yahweh, and he reckoned it to him for righteousness. And he said to him, I am Yahweh, who brought you out of Ur-Kasdim to give you this land to inherit it. And he said, Adonai Yahweh, whereby do I know that I possess it? And he said to him, Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, and a 3-year-old female goat, and a 3-year-old ram, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took all this to him, and cut them in the middle, and placed each half opposite the other, but he did not cut the birds. And the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, and Avram drove them away. And it came to be, when the sun was going down, and a deep sleep fell upon Avram, that see, a frightening great darkness fell upon him. And he said to Avram, Now for certain that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. But the nation whom they serve I am going to judge, and afterward let them come out with great possessions. Now as for you, you are to go to your fathers in peace. You are to be buried at a good old age. Then in the 4th generation they shall return here, for the wickedness of the Amorites is not yet complete. And it came to be, when the sun went down, and it was dark, that see, a smoking oven and a burning torch passing between those pieces. On the same day, Yahweh made a covenant with Avram, saying, I have given this land to your seed, from the river of Mitzrayim to the great river, the river Pirath. With the Canaanite, and the Kenizzite, and the Kedmonite, and the Hittite, and the Kittite, and the Perizzite, and the Rephaim, and the Amorite, and the Canaanite, and the Girgashite, and the Jebusite. Chapter 16. And Sarai, Avram's wife, had borne him no child, and she had a Mizrite female servant whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Avram, See, Yahweh has kept me from bearing children. Please go into my female servant. It might be that I am built up by her. And Avram listened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Avram's wife, took Hagar, her female servant, the Mizrite, and gave her to her husband Avram to be his wife, after Avram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. And he went in to Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said to Avram, My wrong be upon you. I gave my female servant into your bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. Let Yahweh judge between you and me. And Avram said to Sarai, See, your female servant is in your hand. Do to her what is good in your eyes. And Sarai treated her harshly, and she fled from her presence. And the messenger of Yahweh found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's female servant, where have you come from, and where are you going? And she said, I am fleeing from the presence of Sarai, my mistress. And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, Return to your mistress, and humble yourself under her hand. And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, I am going to increase your seed greatly, too numerous to be counted. And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, See, you are conceiving and bearing a son, and shall call his name Yishmael, because Yahweh has heard your affliction. And he is to be a wild man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and dwell over against all his brothers. And she called the name of Yahweh, who spoke to her, You are the El, who sees. For she said, Even here have I sinned after him who sees me. That is why the well was called Be'er Lachairoi. See, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bore Avram a son, and Avram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Yishmael. And Avram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Yishmael to Avram. Chapter 17. And it came to be, when Avram was 99 years old, that Yahweh appeared to Avram and said to him, I am El Shaddai, walk before me, and be perfect. And I gave my covenant between me and you, and shall greatly increase you. And Avram fell on his face, and Elohim spoke with him, saying, As for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you shall become a father of many nations. And no longer is your name called Avram, but your name shall be Avraham, because I shall make you a father of many nations. And I shall make you bear fruit exceedingly, and make nations of you, and sovereigns shall come from you. And I shall establish my covenant between me and you, and your seed after you, in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be Elohim to you and your seed after you. And I shall give to you and your seed after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession, and I shall be their Elohim. And Elohim said to Abraham, As for you, guard my covenant, you and your seed after you, throughout their generations. This is my covenant with you, guard between me and you, and your seed after you. Every male child among you is to be circumcised, and you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall become a sign of the covenant between me and you. And a son of 8 days is circumcised by you, every male child in your generations, he who is born in your house, or brought with silver from any foreigner who is not of your seed. He who is born in your house, and he who is bought with your silver, has to be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. and an uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. And Elohim said to Abraham, As for Sarai your wife, do not call her name Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And I shall barak her, and also give you a son by her. And I shall barak her, and she shall become nations, sovereigns of peoples are to be from her. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Is a child born to a man who is 100 years old? Or is Sarah, who is 90 years old, to bear a child? And Abraham said to Elohim, Oh, let Ishmael live before you. And Elohim said, No, Sarah, your wife, is truly bearing a son to you, and you shall call his name Yitzchak. And I shall establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. See, I shall barak him, and shall make him bear fruit, and greatly increase him. He is to bring forth 12 princes, and I shall make him a great nation. But my covenant I established with Yitzchak, whom Sarah is to bear to you at this appointed time next year. And when he had ended speaking with him, Elohim went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael, his son, and all those born in his house, and all those bought with his silver, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that same day, as Elohim told him. And Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised that same day. And all the men of his house, born in the house or bought with silver from a foreigner, were circumcised with him.